minutes here. So, how are you folks feeling today?
Also, no swearing, right? I think that's pretty.
Yeah.
Okay.
Season Snap channel
Get
is,
that out of the way.
Yes, potty mouth.
Yeah, there you go.
This is gonna fucking suck.
God, really, Slay? Really, Slay? Cut it out.
Love you, BB.
Yeah, sure you do. All right. Alrighty, so we are now live. That should be rolling. Yeah, someone had to do it. It was going to be him. I knew it was going to be him. I was just waiting to see if it was actually going to be him, and it turns out it was him. Also, I just realized I haven't set up the quadrants yet. I'll do that once we're done with the little pre-show thing. Yeah, look at me. I'm so on top of things. So very on top of things. Vince, what's up, my friend? Snapping away there. So, as people are hopefully aware, this is a little bit of a bonus segment here at the beginning before we do actual Cities in a Snap. But what we are doing here is we are going to be discussing the new DLC, the new content, all this new stuff that is coming into Cities in a Snap. And we are, or not to Cities in a Snap, to Cities Skylines, and hopefully Cities in a Snap, you know, later. That'd be pretty cool. So, yeah, CiaS Derp, I know. Well, it will be coming to Cities in a Snap, technically. It will very technically be coming to Cities in a Snap, so I did not lie there. Anyways, so let's go ahead and introduce. So I've got a few people here. We'll go around. We've got, first of all, we've got Kiggy85.
Hello. Hey.
We've got Luca Fiorini.
Hello, people.
We have Slay3K, or Slayer, however you know him.
Good afternoon.
And then we also have Z Lycos.
Howdy.
Nice. Kiggy is super quiet. I can fix Kiggy. There we go. How's that there, keyboard? There we go. I hope everyone is now well balanced. Go ahead and say something there, Kiggy.
I'm always quiet.
Yeah, sure you are.
I have to do it.
Oh my goodness.
Hello,
gracious.
Cuboid and so ever, and hello everyone.
Yes, hello everyone. So obviously, let's just dive right in. Let's just go to the beginning here. Let me go ahead and pull up desktop instead, and we'll go ahead and take a look. So,
Well, it's an interesting thing. Bringing in the fishing is something I'm looking forward to trialing out, and also the other additional free bits, Metro Overhaul mod effectively as standard, which I think is a big thing, big thing. Question is, have they done rendered tunnels?
So the thing that's most interesting to me about Sunset is, of course, what's everyone is hyped about: vanilla Metro Overhaul. That is huge, especially for people over on console, because they wanted that mod to be on console for so long, and now they are actually going to get something from PC. I think that on PC though, like Metro Overhaul will still be a good mod to have like all the bits and pieces that come with it, like the selector for the tracks, etc. And overall, like Sunset Harbor in itself is a pretty mixed bag DLC. You don't get only one thing; you get many multiple things of every single DLC. Somebody said correctly, in my opinion, that this is like a trial DLC. If you want to try everything, a bit of everything, you get this one, and you decide what. So you can get another DLC later. For example, fishing goes very well with industries that I'm probably going to get with the sale, by the way.
right. So that's pretty good. So Slay, what are you thinking about it? I know you've been taking a look at it today. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I was taking a peek just to, because obviously the way I play it doesn't require a lot of things. It's a different pace and the focus is on different elements of the game. But I think, anytime that there's new buildings and new pieces, that's always beneficial, right? Because I'm always looking in diversity in buildings. Because I think you put the same building down repeatedly, you kind of lose some of that realism that I look for. But what I do see is like, the above ground trains, I think is a part of it. I think that's a big deal because I remember one time I was basing a city off of like Chicago, for example, and I didn't have a way to do the trains like I wanted that were, in town. Just at the time, this is like before I got super heavy into all the mods and all the DLCs and
Right.
that were already out. But so I think that's pretty cool. And I think the fishing, I could see a potential, like if you can alter what boats are in that, then maybe you
It
can
looks
make
like
like
you
a
can,
lake. So
potentially.
like, so if someone makes like for example, a boat on the workshop, right? You download the boat, and then if you have I can't remember the mod off the top of my head, but it's like a vehicle based mod where you can change out what vehicles spawn
Advanced
in
vehicle
vanilla.
options.
That's it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Then you could change the boat and you could route boats. So suddenly your lake could suddenly be like active with passenger boats and stuff. Just a thought. I don't know.
That is a
But
cool idea.
I think there's some fun opportunity.
So what about you, Lycos? What do you think about the DLC?
I honestly think it's interesting because you have the trolley buses, which are more of like a green city thing,
Right.
as well as mass transit. So you've got a bit of like a taste of both of those there. So I think it's interesting to go with something like that. As it does give you more options for like a quote unquote green esque part of your city.
Right.
But I think overall it's interesting because there's so much to it and yet there's so little. So
Right.
there's a taste, as everybody else said, a taste of everything, but there is so much of everything that it's quite interesting to see how it'll all play out when it's integrated into the rest of the expansions and stuff.
Right, and I think that's a really good point. So, I mean, it's got a lot of good stuff, and there's a lot of details. Like, I mean, I've got playing kind of just in the background now so that we can all see it. But, I mean, this brings a lot, and we went through actually yesterday, frame by frame, on Thursday, we went through pretty much frame by frame on the CiaS Gym stream whenever this was released. We spent like 2 hours going through it, and one thing we discovered is there's a lot of stuff that they haven't really given us details on, and that I've kind of had me hyped a little bit more. Because one thing in particular is the fact that we have several of these new transit hubs. So what do you think about just the fact that we're kind of, I mean, a lot of people have joked for a while now, hey, we need mass transit too. Do we feel that this kind of satisfies that itch from a lot of people? Because one thing in particular, as what you see on screen, is the Metro update, above ground rails in base game. So, I mean, is this kind of going to scratch that itch of mass transit too that a lot of people have joked about? So, Kiggy, what do you think?
I guess what you're saying there, it could potentially, yes, sort of fill in that little itch. But I mean, we've seen on the workshop for a while now these transit hubs.
Right.
So it's nice to have some in the base game as such. It'd
Exactly.
be interesting to see what new styles might come out on the workshop with these additional buildings as well.
Exactly.
'Cause,
It's bringing that extra variance.
Yeah, a train station and a metro station with a heliport attached to it, and there's so many more possibilities for all the content creators out there. So it's going to be interesting to see what the next few months hold for us on the workshop.
I think it'll hold pretty good things. So, what do you think there, Luca? Do you think that this kind of scratches that mass transit 2 kind of basically meme that has traveled around the City Skylines community for a while at this point?
I think it's more of a mass transit 1.5 because mass transit was massive. You had monorails, cable cars, a lot of new stuff overall, and all the traffic oriented things. And again, this is a bit of everything kind of DLC. So it's like Industries 1.5 or most DLC is 1.5. It's not really a second version of something. It's
Right.
an add-on to an add-on.
And that's fair. And
a
I've
trial
seen
version.
that. I've seen a lot of people say this about that. A lot of people are saying that this doesn't really have one really standout thing. So obviously, parks is all about parks. Industries is about industries. Campus is about education and campuses in particular. But so this does seem to kind of scratch a lot of different areas of the Skylines community. What do you say to that, Sly?
I kind of agree with what you just said and what Luca said. I think that it seems like a bigger, widespread update over, primarily transportation and industries versus that hyper focus like campus,
Well, 'cause there's even some random little things like the hospital stuff.
Yeah, it seems like maybe just an overall game update. Honestly, it's been a year So here's like a bunch of little things that can elevate and push some, some focused areas as well as just across the board. But I think for vanilla players that maybe don't use mods or that prefer not to.
Oh, this is huge for them.
Yeah, this is massive because this gives you so much stuff. I mean, every DLC when you're playing vanilla is going to be huge, but I think there's definitely some helpful things in here. I'm excited. I'm interested to see like the water treatment, waste management, and some of those elements. And like I said, the buildings in general, because that's really where I find kind of the most benefit. But yeah, I think for vanilla players, this is massive.
Yeah, and I would agree. Like, this might actually take because I've always had kind of like my hot list of like, which DLCs to try if you have what. Because I've always said, oh, if you like beautification, try parks. If you like logistics, try industry. All this kind of stuff. But this might just be kind of the palate taster, just like, hey, try this, see what you like, whatever you like in there, you can get further into it. Everything but parks, it looks like, are touched by this, but who knows? There's probably a random little thing.
I have a question. Have they said what health buildings are being added?
No, they haven't. They've only teased new healthcare options.
Okay, because I would be super stoked if we could get like a couple hospitals options or a clinic option and stuff like that, because that seems to be one area when I go to the workshop that
it seems very lacking compared to others.
Yeah, especially for like a medium-sized city or something like that. Medium to small, it's kind of like you either have to go clinic or kind of like a bigger building, especially with like some of the custom assets. They're really big and they're great for like a city. But when you're trying to build something kind of in between there, it's a little tough to find.
Well, like right here, I'll go ahead and freeze it on this, but this is the building that is most in question because a couple people in chat have already noticed, and they were noticing this in my chat too the other day, that this could be something like maybe an elderly home or something like that. But I've actually been thinking maybe this is like a general practitioner's office that you can place. I don't know. Like, there are a lot of good options with this. So, Lycos, what do you think about that?
I think it's very interesting. Now, the one thing I'd like to point out is that they added new like clarifiers to the game,
right?
Which I think is very interesting that they introduced those, because the waste management, or if you dump into your fishing, it detriments your fishing.
Exactly.
So it's interesting that they added both of those. They're like, hey, don't pollute your water. You're going to need that for your fishing. So I think that was a very interesting kind of like add of like, oh crap, we're adding fishing in. We're going to have some kind of other option besides dumping it.
Right, and like Christoph just said, they did confirm in the dev diary from yesterday that we have at least two, but we don't quite know what they are going to be, because like I've said, the general practitioners thing was my theory, but as Christoph pointed out in the dev diary yesterday, thank you for the reminder there, there is going to be something that helps our elderly citizens and something that helps out with our birth rate and increasing the birth rates. And I think that's interesting, but they also didn't cap it at that. And so do you think maybe they're using this to potentially test the waters on things for the future? Like maybe they see what people really latch into and then kind of build off of that, maybe for more content or maybe for developing just something else entirely. What do you think, Kiggy?
It's a good point, really. I was actually wanting to mention more about the waste transfer system, because it says about inland water treatment, which is going to be more clarifies on that. But with the healthcare side of things, will we get retirement homes? Will we have sort of specialist?
Will it be assisted living? Like, there are a lot of different options.
Yeah, and sort of like a prenatal care facilities and things like that. Maybe,
exactly.
I don't know. Yeah, all those kind of sort of bits and bobs. So I was actually reading through a lot of the text on the forums whilst you answered that question. So that's why I'm sort of a bit like, yeah, it's going to be interesting. Are they actually going to be announcing any more info on those before release? Do we know?
I don't know. We don't know for sure. All we know is what they've told us in the dev diaries thus far, and I would expect, I mean, if we look at, there's a schedule floating around. I didn't see anything about like the stuff, though there is, on Wednesday, they are talking specifically about the free update, and so that might be included in that since the hospitals are confirmed to be part of the free update. But let's talk about that a little bit. So far, the things that we know are coming in the free update are actually relatively huge, because first of all, the Metro Overhaul mob base game, that could have easily been an expansion. That could have easily been a DLC. That could be a selling point, but that's part of the free update, allegedly, according to the dev diaries. So we're getting that. We're getting the hospital stuff. So I have to wonder, like, are they just realizing that they can get a lot more people more into the game if they add more to the free updates? Is that maybe what they're doing, or?
Potentially, I have just pulled up the announcement schedule actually. Tomorrow, we're seeing new public transport, so they're going to go in more detail into that. Monday, the 23rd, will be waste and water improvements. Tuesday, the 24th, maps, policies, and new unique buildings, which could bring
Exactly.
discussions about the healthcare stuff.
It-
And then
it
obviously
very much could.
Wednesday be the free update information.
Yep. And again, that I like the fact that they're taking this pacing. They're really trying to. It seems like they're really ramping up. Though, of course, they opened the gate with one of the biggest things, the fishing industry. So, Luca, what do you think about the fishing industry?
The fishing industry is very, very interesting. As somebody else said, it is definitely going to be something that brings your water areas to life. Especially when you consider, like, normally you can't get much stuff moving in the water. With mass transit, you can get ferries,
Right.
but that adds another layer to it. So, and also, that's something that me and Maestro, we talked about the update on our own, and we talked about some implications of the fishing industry. First of
Right.
all, it's a very nice addition. You could make like portal towns that are detached from the main city, and that could be like a very good central
Big fishing village. Yeah.
Yeah, and then also we talked about what implications this could have had, like this sort of a mechanic could have had. For example, you know how the oil offshore thing works in industries,
Yeah, exactly.
right?
Yeah.
It would have been so cool if we had this kind of mechanic back then. Just
Well,
to be able to,
and I almost wonder if they'll be able to sit there and maybe superimpose that onto the old industries, because
that would be great.
that would be really great. Because obviously, if you like logistics and traffic management and kind of production chains, industries is great. But if you want those little finesse details, this is kind of giving you a bit more of that with the fishing. So, Lycos, what are your impressions of the fishing in general?
I honestly am very excited because there is all four types. They have the, I think it was salmon, tuna, seafood, and something else, I think. Which I think is very interesting, especially since it changes as soon as you change the elevation of your water. So I think that'll be an interesting, point of people like, terraforming, their cities, and the water itself to accommodate for several different, things. So I think, with, salmon being more river white, like it'd be interesting to see like, different like trawlers and stuff go down, your
Exactly.
rivers and stuff like that around the city. Like, you could potentially have, not really a big lake or anything, but you could have like small little rivers around you and actually be able to, go along those rivers and actually get, fish and stuff.
Right. So, and a couple things from chat. So, Christoph Berger mentions that policies will be interesting because this is such a jack of all trades DLC, and I have to agree. It seems like this is going to be really interesting. The policies really could be anything. And then the Big K, will we need to paint a district style thing like with the rest of the other industries? And Big K, I'm not thinking we'll have to, because it really does seem, I've pulled up the picture here on the screen, it seems that the fishing is just everywhere, and it looks like you're going to draw the lines. It looks like Christoph and So Everdream have mentioned that as well, but it looks like what you're going to be doing is drawing these fishing routes, and that's going to determine what kind of fish you get. So you don't have to sit there and say, oh, this river is a salmon fishing river and this is an anchovy fishing area. No, you just draw out where you want your fishing trawlers and fishing boats to go, and as Lyco said, you can see different types of trawlers going up and down your rivers. Maybe you have a different one that's in a shallow lake, maybe you have some that are out in the deep waters, and I think that's really interesting because it kind of unlocks a lot that you can do with the industries. Because imagine a version of this where you can sit there and line up, let's say, a logging route for your logging trucks. Like, that would be really cool, wouldn't it? So let's see here. Do we have anything more from chat really quick before we move on? Let's see. I was just asking because there seem to be factories and fish plants. And Big K, that is a good point, but it seems like I haven't seen any districts painted with it. And immediately I don't see any. Even looking at this map, we see a lot of fishing industry, but we don't see anything. We have a little tiny city park, Concord Park, and then we have Crescent Park over there. Just looks like something to do with forestry industry based on the map. But we're not really seeing any districts that indicate, hey, this is a fishing zone. So it does really seem, at least to me, and to perhaps a lot of people in chat, it looks like that it is definitely not the case where they have to draw the district. Though, of course, that could change.
Hey, Kaz.
Yes,
I'd
sir.
like to point out that there's a actual like fishing market right in the middle of the city.
Right, and that's a good point. There's a fish market right in the middle of the city, because we're looking at the fishing industry tab, and there's a fish market right in the middle of the city, so it's possible that the fish market is just districtless. It would be nice to have a new district for fisheries, or at least some unique businesses. That would be interesting, Rolling Panda Art. That would be very interesting, because I think...
Sushi bars.
Yeah, like sushi bars and all that, like having that, and honestly, so Slay, you're a detailer. What kind of potential do you see as a detailer in building one of those right now, out of curiosity?
The fish market itself?
Yeah, like building out around the fish market, maybe creating sushi bars, things like that in the immediate vicinity.
I think it's an interesting thing because it's, you know, I like doing spots where in towns you have like those community meeting areas. And sometimes it's tough because it's like, yeah, you can make a market or something like that, but having the ability to like for a in-game asset that's functional, I would assume, and attracting people, like maybe you can plan out bigger courtyards and almost like outdoor food courts. And then you can base a lot of like stores and stuff like that and commercial around it. So then you have like maybe an outdoor mall kind of area can come out of that, especially with some of the assets that are built for like lower floors of buildings.
Right.
I'm sure you guys are familiar with those.
Yes.
You can put those into walls. You could build elevated paths and have tiers to it and stuff like that. So I think there's a ton of potential to attract people and create those like these just cool commercial hubs that are quite different from what we normally see.
Exactly. So, out of curiosity, so moving on from that and kind of bridging off the same thing, let's just go around. What do we think of the new Japan, the Modern Japan content creator pack? Because that is something that we're getting alongside this as a content creator pack. What do we think of that? Kiggy, what do you think?
I'm excited for that. It's always nice to have a new content creator pack. You know, there's been quite a few already, and to have the Japanese style. Looking through the trailer video,
yep, I have it right here.
Very unique Japanese old school style building with the big clay tiles and that thing there on the left. If you go back a few,
exactly.
That style building that was going to bring in so much more for decorative purposes and parks and things like that. And just in general, I remember you saying about the station. Is it going to be a multi-tiered station? What's it going to be?
It seems interesting. It really does seem interesting. I'm really curious what the limitations of that station will be. So back to Slay again, because you're by far the superior decorator of the people that are currently in this chat by a country mile.
I'll take that.
Yeah, you're by a country mile. But what kind of potential do you see with this? Yeah, we're not worthy to be in the same room as you, Slay. But what kind of potential do you see with the Modern Japan content creator pack?
It's a cool style. I mean, I've seen a lot of like, I think Thai and I don't know if it's all Japanese influenced, maybe Korean style buildings that I've actually pulled. They don't really fit often in my builds, but I haven't done anything that's of like the kind of APAC region. But I think it's a cool thing to have flexibility. I think from a worldwide perspective of the game's appeal, it's great. Because some folks over there may feel like they don't have the right building. So anytime you get help with that, I think like for me specifically, if I were to do something that was maybe an island or something like that could be off the coast, I could totally see how this would be helpful, right?
Right.
Anytime there's more buildings, honestly, like it's fantastic for me. I love it. And then because not all these buildings are skyscrapers either, which is a big deal. Those medium-sized buildings are a lot of what I have to spend more time looking for.
Exactly.
To create density that isn't just vertical.
Exactly, because a lot of the early buildings in City Skylines were either teeny tiny or they were super tall and big, and this gives us a lot more of those in betweens, and we've been getting more and more of them, especially with workshop content. But in the base game, this opens up a lot because a couple of those buildings are huge and magnificent. Having a couple of those skyscrapers that can really give you those focal points that you need for a good, convincing skyline.
I find myself sometimes having to dig through like the factories and stuff and industries to get a certain look, like without having to place each building manually and dig up a bunch of buildings to create a look. Like every so often a big factory building or a distribution center you find on the workshop, there's a couple great ones that to cover space, because if you look aerial view, there's a lot of these buildings that just seem to go on forever. from a satellite view, and it's like sometimes you're lacking that. So I like the idea that there may be some stuff that's like a little bit closer to the ground but big.
Exactly. So, and then the next thing, so the next bit I want to touch on is something that a few people were mentioning in chat, but the Metro WeWork being base game. I mean, we've touched on this before. This is huge. Like, this is something that, as a lot of people know, has been on Kaz Jim's wish list since the day he opened City Skylines. Where are my above ground metros? So, Lycos, what do you think about the addition of these? Like, what does that mean? Is that like, how good of a sign is that? Because I know that you actually have a unique experience. You started out on Origin before getting it on Steam, and so you sat there enviously looking at things like Metro Overhaul mods. So, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's definitely it's gonna allow a lot of people to, not be as frustrated sometimes. I think because, as you said, I started out on Origin, so it was a bit hard to import mods. It was quite a process because you actually had it. Yeah, I'm not even gonna talk about that. But, yeah, I think, especially for people who are on console and, who do like to do vanilla builds, this will definitely give them a lot more options and give them, a bit of a, kind of thing of like, do I want to do this or that with this area? Because, with just having metros, underground, you don't have a lot of options. You just kind of like, okay, this goes here, and I think that'll give people more options to do what they want with the area they have, as well as, maybe do a bit of a different, look for a certain part of the city, which would make sense. Like, with like having a metro weave in between buildings, that makes sense for, someplace, like Chicago, it's between buildings.
Right,
exactly.
It's not underground.
Randomly jumping in, he mentions about the metro and all the buildings in the Japan modern pack. Will we see a metro going through a building like they have?
That is something that I have thought about a lot. Like, I don't know. I mean, we haven't seen that, but man, that'd be an easy selling point for a lot of people to have something like that base game. Oh, that would be glorious. So honestly, like, if it isn't in there, quick, fix it. We've got a couple days. Like, oh my goodness.
I think I've seen you do something like that, Kazjim. You found a building which has got a sort of square in the middle cut out of it. And you've done something
with my highway, and then I've seen Ever do it. I think I've seen Yumbledore try. Like, I've seen a few people try, but it never looks quite right. So, I mean, this could be the opportunity, and maybe this will also inspire some people to sit there and make a couple of custom assets for that, especially since it's base game now, to have above-ground metros. What if we can start seeing that stuff more frequently? I mean, I don't know. So,
yeah, I was thinking it.
What were you saying there, Luca, before we go back?
I was thinking that as well. Like, this is a, like, we are seeing the DLC, but as it happens with every DLC, especially us players on Steam, we can expect a lot, and I mean a lot of new content for the workshop to pop up.
Exactly.
A few days. I'm not even talking about weeks, just days.
Exactly. And now, before we leave off, I want to go ahead and address chat really quick. So let's just kind of catch up here. So thank you to those that have been subbing to the Season Snap channel. Really means a lot. Helps push the content forward, and it gives us the ability to do things like this in the future, and it makes this kind of stuff easier so that we can keep bringing people in and stuff like that. So Roxy, the only thing we'll know metros need is better cars and multi-platform station. And I wonder if we're going to be getting multi-platform stations for Metro. I don't know, but there are a couple of the hubs that do have multiple Metro entryways. So multiple tunnels might be a thing, multiple platforms. We don't know, Roxy, but it does. I'm hopeful. I would say there's a 70% chance that we have some multi-platform stations now. And Schematic with the gift sub bomb. Thank you so much for the gift sub. It really makes us happy here. Really helps keep the content around. Thank you so much. Can we get some loves and some snaps and whatnot for Schematic? Thank you so much. That really means a lot. And congratulations to everyone who has emotes now. And then continuing to catch up here, we've got keyboard in there. We've got, let's see here. I think there's a double platform underground in the trailer. Yeah, I think so, Christoph, but it's a little hard to see. It's hard to make out. Then also, wouldn't the above ground metro basically the same as the monorail from mass transit? Yes and no, Big K. Metro and monorail kind of serve the same function, but they are not the exact same. So kind of yes and kind of no. Then will the metro equal bullet trains also? I mean, I don't know, Rolling Panda. I really don't know about that. That could be interesting. It could be really interesting to find out. Then Flash, those are snapping fingers. Come on. The infamous snap. Oh my goodness. So, before we close out, because we're going to take a brief break before we start the actual Season of Snap event, and all of you here on the panel, thank you so much for coming out and having a chat. This was really great.
You.
Would you guys be up for doing this in the future, folks?
For sure.
Definitely.
Yeah, let's plan on that. So, chat, what do you think? Do you like these kind of pre-snap discussions where you can discuss new content and maybe even if there's like new news for City Skylines, things like that? Is this the kind of thing you would like to see, or is this something that maybe we should do a little bit more separate? Do you like it beforehand or not? Let us know. This panel's been great. Well, I'm glad that you've enjoyed it. Very educational. Lots of great ideas. Thank you. I want to see more about the regional airport. Yes, love the discussions. Maybe we can talk about the regional airport sometime, yeah. But unfortunately, we do have to wrap this up because we've got to do a pre-snap meeting here in a few minutes. Then, well, you pull into 5 Point Station in Atlanta. They have 8 right, so like one of the huge multi-platform stations. Yeah, I can see stuff like that, Roxy. I just don't know for sure if it's base game yet. And the Season Step just wanted to drop in and show some love for the other channel. Oh, well, thank you, Schematic. It really means a lot. And really thank you so much to everyone who has shown their support. Thank you to the panelists for coming in. Again, this has been I am Kazno, obviously. And then we've also had Kigi85, Luca Fiorini, Slay3K, and Zlacos, all former competitors. Sometimes people host and all that. And thank you, everyone who has come by. And stick around because Cities and Snap starts in just under 30 minutes. Don't go anywhere.